If you guys are looking for a cheap, quick alternative to those pricey online GoPro chin bar mounts, stick with us and I'll show you how to make one. The first problem I ran into when I first decided to stick the GoPro to the front of my helmet was what mount I was going to use. Both mounts that come with your GoPro, one will be flat and the other one will be curved. Now, from what I've seen, 99% of the helmets out there have different chin bars and different curvatures to their chin bars. Perfect example, my Arai Corsair V on the right here. The chin bar looks nothing like the Shoei RF 1200. So this was my way around that. I'll show you two different examples. This is the clip-on mount, which I had modified. And this is the standard curved mount. For today's project, we'll be using the standard curved GoPro mount, like you see here. If you don't have the curved mount available, feel free to use the flat mount that comes with your GoPro. Only difference is that it will require a bit more epoxy to the rear of the mount to make sure that once it cures, you have a proper mold of the front of your helmet. This is everything you need to get the job done today. Any type of rubbing alcohol, 2-part epoxy, painter's tape, your GoPro mount, and a popsicle stick. So step 1, make sure you clean the helmet properly. You don't want any residue, you don't want any debris, insects, whatever the case may be. So make sure that's good and clean. Now the next step, you're going to use your painter's tape to cover the front of the helmet. Now the reason we're doing this is to make sure that we can remove the GoPro mount once the JB weld has all dried up. So what you're going to do, piece by piece, cover the front of the helmet with painter's tape like so. Make sure you take your time. You want to make sure that the tape is on secure and that once you put the JB weld on back of the mount, that it doesn't get past your painter's tape and permanently affix itself to your helmet. Once you mount the actual GoPro mount to the front of the helmet, it gets the proper curvature of the location that you're going to be mounting it to. So take a couple seconds before you do anything else to flatten down the painter's tape. It gets that proper curvature of the front of the helmet. Just like that. And if you're a messy person, there's no wrong in throwing some more tape around here just in case the JB weld gets past your initial location where you're going to be putting the mount. So that's the way the front of the helmet should look once you're all said and done. So what we're doing right now is just mixing up the JB weld. It comes in 2 parts. So when you're dispensing it onto whatever you're going to be mixing it on, I just got regular white paper here, you're going to have to mix it up. So just make sure that both white and black are mixed uniformly. Before we proceed with actually putting the JB weld on, make sure you know exactly the location of where you're going to mount it. Most helmets nowadays come with a vent. I taped this one up just to make sure that the JB weld wouldn't get past the tape into the vent and make it potentially unusable. That's up to you. But do a quick mock-up just to check the positioning to make sure you know exactly where you want it. And then once you're sure with the location, you can start adding the JB weld to the back of the mount. Try to do it in such a way that it's uniform, it's spread out properly over the mount completely. And don't be shy, because this is what's going to keep your GoPro stuck to your helmet. So and fix it to your liking. So once you've installed the mount, this is pretty much how you want it to look. And once again, don't worry about how it looks right now, because once the mount has solidified, we're going to take it off and sand it down a bit. Now, as long as that you got it in all the cracks, because you're looking for that perfect mold to the shape of the front of the helmet. So that's how it sits right now. What we're going to do is we're going to let this dry. It says it's good to go in 4 to 8 hours if I'm not mistaken, but I prefer letting it dry for 24 hours. And once it's good to go, we'll be back. All right, so here it is, all said and done. And as you can see, you've officially got a GoPro mount that sits perfectly with the curvature of your helmet. First thing, clean this up just a bit. Hit it with some alcohol just to remove any of the residue from your painter's tape. Double-sided 3M tape. Slap it onto your helmet. Let the 3M double-sided tape, sit for, I think it's about 4 to 6 hours. So you can go ahead and do that, or the next step would be, if you're crazy like myself, is to shave down all of this so that it looks aesthetically pleasing. And at that point, you can take it even a step further and go ahead and paint it so that it matches the mount itself. But I don't think this will be an issue, considering that the showy I'm working with here is already some sort of gray, metallic gray, whatever you want to call it. It should blend in fine. So next step, sand it down, make it look good. And as well, you want to make sure that when you do get ready to mount it, that you have some functionality for your vents here. So that's why I want to go ahead and sand this down a bit. So like you can see right now, it's kind of stopping the vent from opening. So the goal here is to make sure that the vents work properly. So here's the final result after about 10 minutes of sanding. Cleaned it up quite a bit. And if we line it up with the helmet, vents are working now. And you can barely tell, if any, that this was done with some JB weld and some painter's tape, but the fit is pretty much bang on. So like I said, at this point you can either paint around the edges depending on what color your helmet is. But like I said, in this case, the helmet is gray, so we're going to leave it as such. So I'm going to mount up some 3M double-sided tape to this, set it up, and then install our GoPro. Here it is all said and done. By no means is it any type of professional paint job, but like I said, it's just to blend the mount into the JB weld, so you don't see all this gray when it's sitting on the helmet. So we'll let it dry. All right, so our paint has had time to dry at this point, and it's looking pretty good. So you're pretty much done. What I like to do before I stick the double-sided tape to the back of the mount is just heat it up a little bit. And at this point you should be ready to go. So just be careful not to get your fingers on the adhesive side. You want to make sure it sticks evenly and properly. Just take your time with it. You want to make sure that you avoid getting air bubbles between the adhesive and the mount itself. At this point, I'll clean the helmet once again just to make sure that all the adhesive has been removed, to make sure that you have the optimal mounting surface. So what I'll do at this point is peel back the tape. And naturally you want to align everything before you go ahead and stick on the mount. Just make sure it's straight. What I do is I usually line it up with the center of the chin vent and then apply pressure. I like to apply solid pressure for about, I don't know, maybe 20 seconds, 30 seconds, just to make sure that it's on properly. And then what I'll do is I'll use some type of clamp to keep that pressure on about 45 minutes, an hour, just to make sure that it has enough time to cure. But for all intent purposes, it's pretty much done. As you can see, it sits perfectly with the contour of the helmet. There's no gaps. And you retain functionality of the vent. Here you have the GoPro mounted. And that's how it will end up looking once all said and done. And naturally, if you want to change the angles, all you would have to do is the attachments, either add or remove them as needed. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments below, and also consider subscribing and clicking that like button.